Before we begin, I need you to sit with something for just a moment. Right before I started recording, a message came through so strongly that I almost stopped everything. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it carried a weight that I couldn't ignore. It felt like someone out there needed to hear this today, and if you found this video, maybe that's not a coincidence. Recently, someone walked into a private reading carrying a question they couldn't let go of. They weren't looking for advice about work, money, or family. There was only one thing on their mind. One person, one connection that had been haunting them for far longer than they wanted to admit. The moment they sat down, their energy spoke before they did. There was regret, confusion, and an overwhelming feeling of loss. They looked like someone who had spent countless nights replaying old conversations, wondering where everything went wrong. When they finally spoke, they asked why this person had suddenly become distant, why the messages slowed down, why it felt like they had been erased from someone's life without warning. But instead of answering right away, the reader quietly looked at them and said something that changed the entire atmosphere. "You already know the answer. You're just hoping I'll tell you something different." The room fell silent. Sometimes the hardest truth isn't the one we don't know. It's the one we've been trying to avoid. As the conversation unfolded, it became clear that this wasn't simply a story about someone being left behind. There were things this person wasn't admitting, even to themselves. They had spent so much time focusing on what they had lost that they never stopped to ask what role they had played in losing it. The deeper the reading went, the more obvious it became that this connection had never been as balanced as they believed. There had been inconsistency, mixed signals, moments of closeness followed by distance, promises that never turned into actions. Without realizing it, they had become comfortable receiving love without fully giving the same energy back. What they thought was love had slowly turned into attachment. They enjoyed knowing someone would always be there for them, but when it came time to fully commit, they hesitated. They pulled away. They convinced themselves they needed more time, better timing, or different circumstances. Eventually, the other person became exhausted, not because they stopped caring, because they became tired of carrying a relationship that only moved forward when one person was doing all the emotional work. That's when everything changed. The person they had taken for granted quietly chose themselves. No arguments, no dramatic goodbye. Just silence, and strangely enough, that silence became louder than anything words could have said. Now, sitting in front of the reader, they wanted answers. Did this person still think about them? Were they happy without them? Was there still a chance to fix everything? The answer surprised them. The person they couldn't stop thinking about wasn't sitting around waiting anymore. Life had continued. Healing had already begun. They had started rebuilding themselves piece by piece, and for the first time in a long time, they were learning how to be happy without needing someone else's validation. Hearing that was difficult. Not because love had disappeared, but because they realized they were no longer the center of that person's world. And that's when the real lesson finally surfaced. Sometimes we don't miss the person as much as we miss the feeling of being chosen by them. Those are two very different things. The reader gently pointed out that chasing someone after they've healed isn't the same as fighting for love. Sometimes it's simply our ego struggling to accept that life continued without us. That realization hit harder than expected. For the first time, they stopped blaming circumstances. They stopped blaming bad timing. They stopped blaming misunderstandings. Instead, they looked inward. They realized fear had been making decisions for them all along. Fear of commitment, fear of vulnerability, fear of being truly seen. And every time the relationship reached a point where honesty was required, they stepped back instead of stepping closer. By the time they found the courage to return, the other person had already found peace. That's the part many people don't expect. Healing doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like waking up one morning and realizing you no longer check your phone, hoping someone will text. It looks like laughing again without forcing it. It looks like rediscovering the parts of yourself that you abandoned while trying to hold on to someone who wasn't ready to hold on to you. The reader ended the session with one final message. Real change isn't proven by beautiful words. It's proven by becoming someone who no longer repeats the same patterns. Because apologies can open conversations. Only growth can rebuild trust. And if there's one message that keeps coming through for whoever is listening today, it's this. Stop measuring your worth by who stayed and who left. The people who are truly meant for your life will never require you to constantly convince them to choose you. The right connection will never leave you questioning your value every single day. If someone walked away, let them walk. If they return one day as a completely different person, life will reveal what needs to happen. But until then, your responsibility isn't chasing closure. It's choosing yourself every single day. One day you'll look back at everything that once kept you awake at night, and instead of feeling pain, you'll feel gratitude. Because losing the wrong connection made space for the life you were always meant to live.